Welcome to January's Metastatic Breast Cancer podcast, where our theme for this month is still going to be focused on Thich Nhat Hanh's book, No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering that we have been working through. And chapter 3 focuses on looking deeply as to how we can transform our suffering within. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how we can understand this pain. When we are in crisis or pain, we need to first take care of the immediate need, which is that crisis. Once our mindful energy has soothed our suffering, we can begin to look more deeply into its nature and sources. Just as when we have a headache, acknowledging its existence and understanding its causes helps us find the appropriate remedy for it. So understanding eases our pain and helps us transform it into compassion. The important mindfulness practice of cultivating understanding means first of all understanding suffering. The suffering inside us and the suffering of others. A human being without understanding is a human being without compassion, utterly alone, cut off, and isolated. To connect with others, however, we first have to be willing to look deeply into ourselves. And what we often don't realize is that so much of our suffering begins in our own minds. And the practice of meditation and mindfulness can really help us to embrace our suffering and pain from within in order to liberate ourselves from this pain and suffering. So within this chapter of looking deeply, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how can we explore our fear. One unnecessary suffering that we can let go of is the suffering of fear. So many of us walk around with the pain and agitation of useless fear, whether that is the fear of dying, fear of hunger, injury, or loss, fear of what might happen if we do the wrong thing, or fear of being hurt by or of hurting someone we care about. Many people suffer due to the fear of dying. We want to live forever. We fear annihilation. We don't want to pass from being into non-being. This is understandable. If you believe that one day you will cease to exist altogether, it can be very scary. But if you take the time to still the activities of body and mind and look deeply, you may see that you are dying right this very moment. You think that you will die in a few years, or 20 years, or 30 years. That's not true. You are dying now. You have been dying all the time. It's actually very pleasant to die, which is also to live. There are many cells inside your body that are dying as you read these words. 50 to 70 billion cells die each day in the average human adult. You are too busy to organize funerals for all of them. At the very same time, new cells are being born, and you don't have the time to sing happy birthday to them. If old cells don't die, there's no chance for new cells to be born. So death is a very good thing. It's very crucial for birth. You are undergoing birth and death in this very moment. While most people are intensely afraid of dying, there are also people who are weary of living. They get bored after 50, 70, or maybe only 20 or 30 years. They find life unbearable and are seeking non-being. Some of them think that suicide is a way to end the suffering and to pass from the realm of being into non-being. Both of these preconceptions cause suffering because they ignore the reality that life and death always go together. You can't take one out of the other. Even after your so-called death, you will continue in some way. Deep looking through the practice of mindfulness and meditation can dismantle these kinds of notions. There is no birth and death. Everything dies and renews itself all the time. When you get that kind of insight, you no longer tire yourself out with anxiety and aversion. When we are full of fear, we are often completely focused on preventing the event we dread, and we forget that joy is also possible, even in an unpredictable world. We believe that we need to obtain a certain diploma or career in order to be safe and be a success. There are people who are victims of this kind of success. They get the things they worked so hard to achieve, and then they find themselves trapped in ways they hadn't anticipated. But no one is ever a victim of his or her happiness. Many of us live in communities where everyone has a roof over their head and enough food to eat, and no one is scared of bombs dropping on them, yet people are still suffering. This is because we have forgotten or misplaced our deepest aspiration. Many of us slog through life without conscious awareness or intention. We set ourselves a course and we barrel ahead, without stopping to ask whether this path is fulfilling our most important goals. That's partly because many of us believe that happiness is not possible in the here and now. We think we need to struggle now so that we will be happy in the future. So we postpone happiness and try to run into the future and attain the conditions of happiness that we don't have now. If you breathe in and bring your mind home to your body, you can recognize immediately the many conditions of happiness that you already have. You can look deeply at your true aspiration and get the insight. I don't need to run into the future in order to be happy. We all have the habit of running, every one of us. That habit creates tension, not only in the body, but in the mind, and it's a major source of our suffering. Many of us believe that we can only be happy if we have a great deal of power, fame, wealth, and sensual pleasures. But when we look around, we see there are people who have plenty of these things, yet they aren't happy. These objects of desire are not real conditions of happiness. Looking deeply, we can recognize that habit energy of running and envision what things would be like if we didn't let it push us to run anymore. Everyone has volition, a strong motivation that fuels us, and when it's a healthy one, brings us joy. Thich Nhat Hanh shares that when he was 12, he knew that he wanted to be a monk. At the age of 16, he left his mother and family to become ordained as a novice monk. Thich Nhat Hanh says he loved his mother so much and wanted to be near her. On the other hand, he knew that his greatest happiness would be to live as a monk. He had to sacrifice the good times he could have spent with his mother and was sad about that, but didn't allow any fear of loss to hold him back because he knew he was on the path of fulfilling his true aspiration. If we haven't taken time to stop, come home to ourselves, and look deeply, we may not know what brings us our deepest happiness. Perhaps we are working hard at success in one area, but our deepest aspiration is to work in another field or to help people in another way. We need to stop and ask, can I realize my deepest aspiration if I pursue this path? And what is really preventing me from taking the path I most deeply desire? So as we begin a new year in 2022, I invite you all to really think of adopting a daily meditation practice and to make more time to sit in stillness and in silence so that you can really feel the joy and beauty of the present moment. And even with the best intention and even with a long-standing mindfulness practice, we all have the tendency to run into the future or go back into the past to search for happiness elsewhere. A bell of mindfulness, whether it is an actual bell or some other sound, is a wonderful reminder to come back to ourselves, to come back to life here in this present moment. The sound of the bell is the voice of the Buddha within. And every one of us has Buddha nature, Thich Nhat Hanh says, the capacity for compassionate, clear understanding nature within us. So when we hear the sound of the bell, if we like practicing mindfulness, we can respond to that intervention with respect and appreciation. In his tradition, every time they hear the bell, they pause. They stop moving, talking, and thinking, and they listen to the voice of the heart. We don't say that we hit the bell or strike the bell. Rather, we say we invite the bell to sound, because the bell is a friend, an enlightened friend that helps us wake up and guides us home to ourselves. Gentleness and nonviolence are characteristics of the sound of the bell. Its sound is gentle, but very powerful. When you hear the sound of the bell, take the opportunity to come home to yourself and enjoy your breathing. Take a few moments to inhale and exhale deeply and touch a little happiness. If you want to experience what the end of suffering will feel like, it is in the here and the now with this breath. It's right here. So as we end our podcast, I want to invite you to take a moment now to focus on your breathing in. And as you breathe in, to silently repeat to yourself, I know I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, to say to yourself, I smile. So breathing in, I know I am breathing in. And breathing out, I smile. Let's do that 3 more times. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I smile. And just allow yourself in this moment to consciously breathe in, knowing and recognizing the inhale. And as you breathe out, to gently allow yourself to smile, feeling how that smile feels on your face, in your heart, and in your mind. I hope that you will be able to join us for our metastatic breast cancer group in January, and wishing you all a safe and joyous year ahead.